So today agenda, we're gonna look into epic. Uh, we're gonna go through epic definition. So we're gonna look into what we call epic hypothesis statement. We're looking to lean business case, and also how we can estimate this epic. And also we're looking to MVP. What does MVP mean? So, what is an epic? So, an epic in a traditional product management design is a significant solution development initiative. So here we'll look into. I'll take just an example of infrastructure modernization as an epic. So, when you look into infrastructure modernization, we can have so many features that can be decomposed from this specific epic, and this feature is gonna be distributed against through or they're going to be worked on by different value streams, or this is agile release streams, or maybe you can tell Scrum team that to be able to finish some of these, these epics. So we can look into maybe if we try to decompose this infrastructure modernization epic, we can look into legacy system decomposition. So when you move from from on-premise to cloud, maybe you need to decompose the on-premise application, or maybe the physical server that you have over there. So that has to be decomposed. That can be one feature. So and also we can have infrastructure automation and orchestration. When you move into cloud, you want to decompose some of those monolith application and come up with maybe a microservices or maybe container based application. So and also we have to implement our CI/CD pipeline. We might have a CI/CD pipeline on premise, but once we go to the cloud, we have to maybe incorporate the cloud ecosystem when it comes to maybe AWS services to just maybe to map to our own on-premise infrastructure. So we're gonna have to do some infrastructure modernization in the cloud and also orchestration. This you can use services like Kubernetes, whereby we can have distributed services. That can be feature who can be assigned specific agile team to be able to make sure that this epic is already it's finished on time. And also we can look into another feature, security and compliance enhancements. So once we start moving data from on-premise to the cloud, we need some security, around how data move from those two different environments, data rest and also data on transit. So, especially look into maybe if your healthcare system or banking system. So we need to have HIPAA or PCI, DSS, how we can just protect the data, the customer data when moving from the cloud from on-premise to cloud. So and also security around the infrastructure itself and the networking. You don't want people start poking around your networking system to be able to maybe steal some data in there. Yeah, we can have another feature called data management and governance. As we just discussed, these data is going to be moving through different systems and just different environment or maybe different data centers. So you need to have some governance around that data that's going to be moving from different and how your data is going to be protected through those two different environments. And then we can look into training and change management. This can be another feature. So moving to the cloud, we're going to have a lot of discussion with the stakeholder, and there might be a lot of changes that can be implemented. So those changes have to have some features that are going to be used to govern what's going to be going around the change management, and also the training. When we move to new solutions or new technology in the cloud, you have to have some training for your team so that you can be able to maintain some of those technologies. So uh, in a nutshell, we just discussed, Epic can be a very big development initiative, and you can see this is a features can be, it can span through the PIs, and also through uh, maybe so many PIs can go, so that Epic, can span through PI, you know, so portfolio epics are typically across, they're cross-cutting. This is like a iterative way of breaking down and be so that you can be able to understand these epics, right? So we do have two type epics. We do have business epic, which this directly delivers business value, And also we have enablers, epics. This is like infrastructure modernization, like we just discussed. This, they move the architectural language support upcoming business technical. So we are talking about maybe a new database creation in the cloud to be able to host our on-premise application. We can talk about the CI/CD pipeline. We can be able to deploy our code on time. We can talk about the new networking so that we can be able to support in new distributed services. You can talk about the Kubernetes services so that Runway can be able to support our services that's going to be distributed across the network. So let's get into some little bit of discussion. What's the difference between an epic and a project? When you're looking, if you're coming from those traditional way of project management, we call it waterfall. And you might have some little bit of the difference. Different. There's a lot of you might see a lot of differences between epic and project. So in agile, in epic, it's implemented by stable cross-functional value stream and ERT. So the value stream, this is just development team, and this development team, they have to be very stable development team, and then they have to be long-lived. When you talk about product development, you need to have a team that understand the product life cycle. They've been working on this product. They understand from inception to deployment to maintenance, and also to maybe maintaining and refactoring some of those code. There has to be some level of people who understand what's going on with it. So there's so many agile release train that can make up they can start working on these epics, and those are the team that that can look into how to finish some of those epics. And then when you look into the traditional project, this is implemented by temporary team, which disband after work is completed. Once the project is done, you've been assigned a project, and once it's done, you go look for another project, or maybe your team manager or the team members, or maybe the company move you to a different project. So, and the risk here is you're not permanent to that product. So if anything that changes and you're not available there to someone who might give it that portion of that a code to change, and if you really don't understand, there will be a level of learning curve to be able to understand how these products will develop. So the next difference between epic and project is no definite start and end points. Scope is variable. It continue until Westjeff say otherwise. So where we talk about here, the epic can span through API. API can be 3 months, 3 to 4 months, and it can be 3 to 5 PIs. So depending on how many, depending on the what timeline you have, or depending on how the Westjeff, how you prioritize some of your features. If you realize that the value of the epic is done, you can stop development. Right? So, like for example, the fast and 2PI, you see the value of this epic, or maybe some of those features that make this epic. There, we are done with them. We have achieved the value we wanted. You can just stop developing that. So on the other side, projects, you already know they have a definite date and time, and the scope is fixed. All scope must be implemented, and it has to be done at a specific time. So we see how in project really we don't encourage changes, but we can see scope in epic is variable. We can just change the scope depending on the market dependencies. Like for example, we see value in the market, and then we can just come up with the new capabilities, and we can just include in that epic so that we can be able to meet the market demand. And also progress measured outcome against the benefits hypothesis. Like for the outcome is just the how does a customer react to what we just posted in production. There has to be some level of whereby is exciting the customers. That's some of the post product that we push production, and it can be used out there. But those customer, there's some level of excitement, so we can see our benefits hypothesis has been achieved. Then maybe the benefits hypothesis can be customer, maybe cost reduction in your infrastructure. Like before, you used to have to maintain regular databases, database backups, and database, server maintenance and all that. So when you move to the cloud, we have these tools that can help you maintain and do backup, which is all, which is can be automated. So some of those benefit hypotheses can be measured using epics. And then progress is measured based on task completion. Project is all about finishing a task, and you can just push this task after every 6 months and say this is what you just completed. But you haven't engaged customers so much in this development, but so you don't know if the customer are gonna be excited with what we deliver. Maybe the what we deliver is past the timeline, or maybe the customer doesn't want it anymore. So that can be a problem. Lean business case based on this is business benefit hypothesis. What we need to see when we start learning this lean business case, and also in project, overly detailed business case based on speculative rate of return. So we see that how we they come up with the project and requirements. It's just speculative. This is what we're gonna have to do, but there's so many things we can discuss behind what we mean by speculative. But what I'm saying here is we tend to take requirement as face value during project inceptions. We don't do some, maybe in Agile, we do some of the design thinking process whereby we can talk to the customers and we can be able to see what customers' needs are. But the problem with the project management here, we just take the requirement as face value and then we start implementing. That can be the difference. So implementing follows build, measure. We have start talking about the lean startup. So safe, always. I suggest you start doing, start developing and then you learn and then you change. That type of stuff, it help you, reduce the risk of development and also maybe be able to, get the correct the immediate feedback so that even if you need to change something, you'll be able to, because they think about it. There's a lot of investment in some of these epics, and you have to be able to make sure that you reduce the risk, and also you get the value of their money. When you get a good feedback from the customer, those are the very good leading indicators that you're doing the right thing. So you should be able to measure using some of the KPI. Like for example, if you push some of the this code production or move to the cloud, as we just discussed, you can have some KPI, the cloud adoption, and how your company is adopting what's the benefit. So you can just measure those epics. Implementing typical flow, follows phase gate and sequential waterfall. These are just some specific milestone. So we just make sure that at the end of 6 months, we need to have span. We need to spin this database, and also we need to have a new database in the cloud. Maybe sometime you're doing some vertical scaling. Maybe your application is, you're having some problem with the application, being online all the time, and so you wanna, maybe uh, help your company be able to maintain that business continuity. So you need to do some vertical scaling. So that's some of those waterfall. Maybe you don't do a lot of risk mitigation to see if you need database, or maybe you need to implement some other. Maybe you need to refactor your code to make sure that your application works very well. So it's the waterfall. It doesn't really take into consideration what we need to learn or what are the risk. Just take the requirement that's discussed at the face value. So after the lean business case is approved, commitment to evaluation of MVP. So MVP here is not always needed, but MVP sometime in this Apex it comes out like we can just think about the prototypes. The prototypes is just to make sure that we really building what we think a customer want. And also business case is approved upfront, committed is made to the entire project. So during the typical project, when you write those business case, so you just take those requirement and you give it to a development team, and they'll start developing some of those requirements. But with Epic, you can go through some prototyping so that we can be able to reduce some of the risk and be able to understand really very well what we're doing. So those are a few elements. What's the difference between Epic and project? So before we start working on Epic, we do have something we call hypothesis statement. So Since these are very significant enterprise investment, stakeholders must agree on their intent. So we're going to have to have through a level of processes. We're going to have some, iteration whereby we're going to have to go through with the level of discussion with different stakeholders to be able to understand what are we trying to do. So to be able to capture the information in these epics, first of all we need to come up with a hypothesis statement. And what are hypothesis statements? So epic hypothesis statement, it has some different attributes. When you take these epics and you start, and you start looking into how we can, how we're gonna start looking into the way of implementing this epic. We're looking to different attributes here. So we do have a funnel. So funnel, these are the date this epics was discussed. So we're gonna have to discuss the epic owners, but this epic has to be assigned to someone to be able to go through a portfolio Kanban system. So we're gonna have to discuss maybe the next topic, what is a portfolio Kanban. But for now, let's look into some of those attributes that we get in Epic hypothesis. So we do have Epic owners for sure. The Epic has to have Epic's owner, so that this is a guy who's gonna be championing this Epic. And then we're gonna have Epic name. So like for example, here we're just taking the infrastructure modernization. This will be the Epic name. The next attribute we need to see in an epic hypothesis. This is just a placeholder on an object that is gonna hold this epic, so that we can have the discussion with the stakeholder and make sure that when we take this epic to be approved by Lean Portfolio Management, they have to go look into what are the value statement that we are getting from this epic, and then you can be able to when it get approved, when you start lighting, you start coming up with the lean business case. So let's say we will have epic description. You can, like for example, here we have this epic is infrastructure modernization. What are the epic distribution? So is an elevator pitch here, the value statement. Like for example, I just created one of the elevator pitch. What you can just give, as you all know, just to get a little bit of background. What's an elevator pitch? Let's, for example, today you have a CEO, or maybe you have a tech manager that you want to sell your epic. So you met in an elevator, and maybe you only have 10 seconds to be able to maybe to explain to this person what you're trying to do. So that's 10 seconds should be able to give the value statement, the benefit of this epic, and what are you trying to achieve between those two, to get attention and of that person that you're gonna be presenting some of this epic to be approved. So you can go through here, initiative is infrastructure modernization. It's just upgrading hardware, software. It's about future proofing. Our foundation is unprecedented growth and efficiency. So by we're gonna be we're gonna adapt some technology. Our environment, our system gonna be scalable enough. They're going to be infrastructure scaling, dynamic ecosystem. So you can just go through this is some of the elevator pitch you can just give just to sell your idea to the business stakeholders. So you can look who are the customer, like that this customer, this infrastructure modernization, this is like the business is a customer, right? So it's your company and maybe a different organization that want to modernize that, maybe a debit card debit card business stream. So you guys want to modernize your infrastructure. So for the customer, you can say debit card team. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to modernize our infrastructure. This is the solution. So you can just discuss this. The solution is we want to move to the cloud. So it's something on how so the how is how we're gonna move this. You're gonna have to, get a vendor, AWS, and you have to do some basic, value proposition. You're gonna do the cost analysis here, and you're gonna do the benefits analysis. Those one, you're gonna have to do it when you're presenting. So the value you have to present the value. What are the value that we're gonna get from this infrastructure? solution. As we can just discuss here, you can go that value can also can you can as you can see is on the this elevator pitch or the value statement here. You can just see the value of why we are moving to the cloud. So and unlike here, it can be what we have on premise. What we have in premise is the old the servers, that need a lot of work in the maintenance. We need to add more, power to some of those servers. But when we move to cloud, we can just get the benefits of having, cloud benefits. Like for example, someone can be doing, we can automate some of the, updates, the backups, the CI/CD pipeline. Using the cloud ecosystem, we can be able to get the benefits of moving to cloud, and also we can just see our solution. So you can just compare your on-premise and the cloud solution. uh, this is what our solution is doing, something different or something better that we can have in our own existing environment. So you also have to look into business measured benefits that business can anticipate in epic policies payment to be correct. So and also we do have leading indicators. You're gonna have to put in the what are the benefits that you're gonna get when we implement this epic. And also the other attribute is leading indicators, the early measures. When we have those KPI, what are the leading indicators? What are some of the value? What are some of those hints or maybe flags we can see that hey, we're gonna start. We have already moving in the cloud, and this we're still getting benefits. Like some of the customer can be happy that the application are always online because of using clouds, as solution. And also you have to discuss. So let's look into what are the business outcomes. So some of the business outcomes we can have in a cloud. So in a specific hypothesis statement. Like for example, here we just discussed the cloud. This is the infrastructure modernization. Increased operation efficiency. I'm just giving you an example of what some of the attributes business outcome you can use so that you can be able to to put in your epic hypothesis system, so that when you sell this to the other business stakeholders, you can be able to get you know your epic approved. So some of those business outcome, as you can see, is maybe operational efficiency and also cost optimization. Looking to see like shift to the cloud based solution not only eliminate needs for costly hardware investment, but also optimize ongoing operation expenses with the pay as you go pricing models and reduce maintenance overhead. We achieve significant cost saving while maximize uh, ROI. So some of those benefits, you can just explain, you can just put in your epic hypothesis. And these are very important because people, when this epics get need to be approved, people are gonna be looking at what are the benefits that we're getting as a company when we approve this epic. And also we can increase operation efficiency. So you can just see maybe our application is gonna be faster. Maybe your code is going to be running faster. Maybe we will not be doing a lot of backups because we're going to have to automate some of those processes. So we have some level of increased efficiency. And then we have the leading indicators. So leading indicators is just some of the early signs that our technology is working. So some of the leading indicators here, you can see the system downtime. Maybe, for example, on a premise, the system has always been down because maybe someone pushed a patch somewhere and maybe the instance failed because there wasn't a lot of maybe planning and also coordination between different teams. Some team they were not told that we're going to be sending some backups, or we're going to be doing some backups, or we're going to be doing some server patching, and then system goes down because of some level of configuration changes. So our system is always up, and when we move to cloud, some of those are maybe as the leading indicators that we might get when we implement this Epic. And also we do have deployment frequency. Like for example, we call the CI/CD pipeline level, so we can have maybe on time deployment because we are using some container based application, or maybe you're using some microservices. So they track how new features or maybe updates are deployed to production. An increase in deployment frequency suggests that infrastructure is becoming more agile and adaptive. And also we can look into infrastructure provision time. So like for example, spinning an instance in AWS is just like maybe if it takes only 5 minutes to come up with a new instance. Like, but in a traditional infrastructure, spinning up a virtual machine is, and also provisioning is, and also mapping to the application. It might take days, but AWS, you can just specific click, you can have an instance running in the cloud. So here we're gonna discuss what is like, so we're looking to when we start writing the epic hypothesis, before even we start implementing some of this epic, we have to have the lean business case. So this lean business case, like I just talked about, there has to be someone who owns this epic, and epic owners. So epic owner will take that epic and start, like, writing the lean business case. So the lean business case is very important because this is the what is going to be used to approve some of these epics. And let's look into what we can get and some of those. Uh, what is was it? So let's discuss what is the lean business case. So business outcome hypothesis articulate the expected result benefit that an organization anticipates uh, achieving through particular initiative or project. So this is a lean business. So we can just say a lean business case is a business outcome. Is a business outcome hypothesis that articulates the expected results or benefits that an organization anticipates to achieve through the initiative product. So we take that initiative as a infrastructure modernization, and what we can achieve from that epic is going to be captured in a lean business case. So we do have different attributes in lean business case that we can look into. So when a business, when a lean, epic owners take this, they're gonna have some attributes that we're gonna have to fill in. So we do have a funnel. Yeah, we just seen that these are the date that it tracked the aging of this epic when it was put in the in a portfolio, and when was it approved, through the Kanban system. And then we have the epic owners. We do have the stakeholders. The stakeholder, as just discussed, is maybe a debit card team. Those are the type. And what are these other team that work with that specific team? So we do have maybe other vendors that can be included in this team, and those are the people that they have to be included when we start this, solutioning or discussing some of those epics. So we have epic description. This is the we just have to give a name of, like, for example, this infrastructure modernization using epic hypothesis statement. So you can just describe what this epics is all about. And then we have business outcome hypothesis. So business outcome hypothesis, as just we discussed, we can just put in here as increase operational efficiency, enhance scalability, improve security, a faster time to market, cost optimization, enhance reliability, better data insights, and decision making. So those are the benefit hypotheses that we're gonna get when we start taking this initiative. Um, Leading indicator, we just saw the other day, like, system are always on time, maybe on time deployment. Those, when we start going to cloud, those are some of the leading indicators that we're gonna have to put in the lane business case, so that you can be able to explain to the team, especially the lane business, lane portfolio management, that's gonna this business lane business case. So we just discussed, before being committed, before this Epic is being committed or implemented, Epic require analysis. Epic owners take responsibility for critical collaboration needed for business epics. So we're gonna have different people who gonna have, especially the enterprise architecture. They'll guide you on how to implement this epic. They know how the level, the holistic enterprise infrastructure is. They'll guide you. You're gonna have to discuss them, which application that I can move to cloud, what are the ecosystem, and what are the dependency with the different application. And so you need those guys to be able to discuss this epic before you get implemented. And so we go have business people, like those business that works with those debit card companies. So you need those, especially if you start working with the customer data. You need to have business people that understand that data and be able to get some of those information in your epic. So you this because this is a very huge initiative. So you have to limit the scope. You have to define specific scope because of the budget. So they need to understand what is the scope and what is out of scope. Like in an infrastructure modernization, we are not this our budget will not be used to maybe to tear down some of the physical servers. Maybe someone else, some of the team can be used to they can allocate some of their budget to take down some of the physical server when we move to cloud. And maybe some of the non-functional requirements here, and some of the non-functional requirements they can put in here is just training. You need team to be trained on what are the budgets for the team to be trained when you move to the cloud. And then you can improve. You can use MVP. You can use MVP. It's not always required. Some of those epics, but MVP. Some of the MVP, some of the epic require maybe a prototyping so that we can be able to prove the business hypothesis. That's where you might need the MVP to be, someone to start working on MVP, so you can just be able to prove your MVP. But some of the features that get decomposed in the feature, they just send to agile team and they start working on them. And then additional potential features. You can see in the future that maybe you might need some capability. Like for example, after you get the high level features from that epic, you might have some features in the future, maybe enhancement features. Like for example, if you have an SAP and you want to maybe utilize some of the SAP ecosystem, so you might have a feature that you're gonna be you're gonna implement there so that you can be able to maybe improve your performance on the application, or maybe introduce new technology. So you might have to think through maybe a future that can be able to include, and you also have to explain what are the value benefits that you get from them. And then you have to analysis summary. So all this has to be followed. You have to have some analysis and summary, and you have to work with different teams. It's a collaborative, different function team. So for you to be able to implement some of those. Okay. So lean business case help you analyze the epic before even get implemented. So when the lean business portfolio management look at this lean business case, they follow everything you put in here so that they can be able to prove, then it move to execute it. So for we're gonna have to look into like we just discussed in the previous slide of what's the MVP. So essentially MVP, especially in a large uh, scale initiative, like here we just discussed infrastructure modernization. So we might need some MVP to be able to prove that business hypothesis. And why do we need MVP? It helps us focus on prioritization. Like when you start working on this MVP, you start saying, when you see these things start spinning wheels, we start looking, saying that what are the prioritization that can make. When you start, if this epic get approved, you'll see the high, those features that you're gonna be working on when there's epics, MVP get approved. And also risk mitigation, like when you start working on, you might find some dependency you didn't even look into when you're doing some that lean business case discussion, and you can go to incorporate one because you have just found them because you start working on MVP. And then early value delivery. So when you start getting those early feedback, you get some, you get to see MVP, through MVP, you can be able to maybe rearrange your planning so that, we can start doing the high value features first so that you can get to see the customer's feedback early. And also adaptive and flexibility. I just get so dynamic, rapidly evolving landscape of technology and business require priorities. Because priorities can change. You using MVP, you can just dynamically change the tactics on how your features or maybe the epic cost. So so the estimation of the epic, it goes through a team called lean portfolio management team. These are the team that look into those lean business cases and they approve your your Epic. So how do they do? How do they even know that this huge initiative that's how it's going to cost? So let's we can look here. Considerable strategic effort requires collaborating with the external suppliers to develop solution. We're gonna have maybe you can have some IT company that's gonna be helping your team implement that, especially maybe AWS. You're gonna hire AWS team to help you. So that's external supplier you have to put in consideration when you're getting this budget. So you have to work with the lean portfolio management team to be able to come up with a budget. So an MVP anticipated full implementation cost should be included in internal cost and forecast suppliers. So MVP also when you start deciding if you want to go through MVP route, so you have to be able to maybe estimate some of those costs that you're gonna have to well, include on that MVP. So most of the time, we'll find team using t-shirt size. Uh, so t-shirt size is a simple way to estimate epics, especially in early stages. A cost range is established for t-shirt size using historical data. The gaps in the cost ranges reflect the uncertainty and avoid excessive discussion around the cases. If this is something that your team have never done before, so you really don't have exact numbers. So what you can do is just you can look into the previous velocity. How has the team been, developing some of this, or maybe some of this initiative that you've done in the past? Like what's the velocity of the specific team, and then you can just estimating those t-shirt sizing. So some of those estimating method that we can use to maybe put a cost on an epic. So as you can see here, maybe an epic. We can have we can look into some of those epics, different velocity. Like you can have an extra large, and you can just give a high level numbers. That will cost maybe $2 million, and maybe an extra large epic, maybe from the previous velocity, 1 million to 1.5. A large epic, it can be 500K, medium cost. So this is just high level analysis. There should be some level of guardrails that depending on the budget that you end up assigned to this epic, depending on what other initiative that your team is undertaking. So most of the time you find some of the epic they're being estimated using t-shirt sizing. And then when you start implementing, then you can have maybe a definite cost for those epics. So epic funding. So the funding of those epics, like for example, how can you fund this epic? So when we start writing check, you don't want to just say, hey, let's fund this project. So what you do is you just go through to a value stream team. This is the agile team. And then when you start working on these epics, that's why you're just writing money. You fund specific features. So as you continue, as a team start, developing some of those features, then you're gonna be writing those. You're gonna be funding those initiative through continuous delivery, continuous delivery of those features and product. So you really don't fund projects in during Epic, especially in Agile. We fund the team so that we can just see how the value creation is going through. So it may be in the future we say, hey, we are done with our value creation here, and then we can stop funding this Epic because we have recognized, or we have just received the benefits that we needed from this. And then we found this use the lean startup concept where we build, we measure, we learn. We get this feedback when we build, and then we demo some of those. You see the value of the feature, and then you measure what are the KPIs on what the benefits that we're getting as an organization. And then you can, is if all the stakeholders are happy with what is being built, then you can continue funding some of those. So how do you know this feature? Okay, we just discussed that this feature can span through PI. So how can you focus, estimate an epic duration? Um, so it's very tricky here, but most of the time, it can be, yeah, it's very challenging to focus an epic. But most of the time, we'll look into velocity of the team. That's going to be a guiding principle. Um, so unless this epic is wholly outsourced, you can you can outsource from maybe an IT company. We can just write. You can just let those guys do the estimation, and then when they do estimation, they'll tell you, "Hey, from our past experience, this is what we can do. With this, how long it's gonna take to get your epic completed." So while it's be challenging to focus for the duration of the epic implementation by mixing of internal uh, agile strengths and external suppliers. An understanding of focused duration of epic is critical to proper functioning of the portfolio. But most of the time here, we're going to have to use the history of what you have done from previous velocity of the team, and then you can just give maybe a duration where you think an epic. It can be a little bit challenging to give to focus the duration of an epic. So there's so many, we have, before, when we start doing the epic focusing, there's three things we can, attribute we can use. So we can use this as a, story point. When we can decompose this epic into features, and those features we can give them, we can assign story points, and then, we can say, hey, from this feature story point, and these are the feature that has to go through this epic. These story points, can take these many PIs, and that can give you maybe an overview of how that feature is going to be delivered. That's the next thing is velocity of the each agile release train. From the past experience, this has been the team's velocity. If you have a mature team, and some of those, if that the team the previous velocity, then you can be able to maybe the epic allocation. And that's the other thing you can just look into the capacity allocation. How many team or how many resources can you assign this epic from how how the other team have been allocated some of that efforts. This can be discussion between the product and solution management and also epic owners and also learn a portfolio management team to be able to know how many resources can you have to be able to start working on this. So within, if you have maybe 100% utilization of resources, it can take less time. You have maybe percentage of utilization resources, then you might have to plan when and maybe estimate and focus how can this. So here we can look into a, agile stream one. So we have here an aspect, epic which has 200 2000 to 2000 points, and the previous epic art velocity has been 1000 with this maybe specific PI. Mm. The capacity going to be allocated for this epic is 40%. So available point is 400. So from the previous PI, 400 points with the 40% allocation of the capacity, we're looking to 5 to 7 PI. And then we can have maybe another team, from the estimated epic is maybe 500 to 800 points. That's what we estimate the epic points will be. And then from previous algebraic strain velocity, the RPI, specific PI is 500 points, and you're gonna have 25% resource authorization. So we're gonna have 125 points per PI. So this will take 47 PI. And the same, we can just do the same. So let's discuss about the implementing the Epic. So when you start implement Epic, you have to be very careful. You follow through some of the agile methods. So we highly recommend build, measure, and learn startup cycle. You build, you measure, and then you learn. this will help you, reduce the risk, reduce risk. Also, get the benefits of this epic, and be able to maybe to understand, and also cost saving. Cost saving. You should be able to, when you start doing this iterative, you should be able to learn, to reduce the risk, and also get the immediate feedback. Right. So those are the, when implementing this epic, you should always use the build, measure, and learn. And this is the agile lean startup concept. And also, it has to be data driven. So you have to gather data to prove the epic performance. You have to do some design sessions. You have to gather some information. When you do this MVP, you'll have some data to be able to prove or do epic hypothesis. Like when you start working on this MVP, you start getting value feedback from other people. So using that, it helps you even reduce the risk of this development process. So let's look into where, like for example, we were just talking about how we can just get epic from. So which other places can we get these epics? So epics may originate from the agile strain. Like for example, the team that have been maintaining this infrastructure, they can come, hey, why don't we move to the cloud? Some of those team, you can have this epic. It's not only some strategic team, but team also can come up with that good epics, and hey, let's implement this because moving to a cloud is a benefit to team. And also can introduce the epic can also come from portfolio epics. These are strategic theme. We're gonna have to discuss about what strategic theme is. This is just to make sure that company has their own strategy and maybe the vision and mission. Maybe from the portfolio standpoint, when companies start creating this strategic theme, they might come up with some epics. These themes can be created into epics, and also features to be implemented. So, how, like for example, we're just talking about implementation of epic. So here you can just see the MVP has already been approved. And so it's in early state. So you start building an MVP just in case of a prototype, and then you approve your business hypothesis. So has our business hypothesis been approved? Yes. Then you can continue working on that MVP, or maybe you can start working on those features. So, and why? When do you think it's done? Maybe the value of that MVP has already been achieved using WestJeff. WestJeff is just how do we progress on how do you see the value? How do you plan the value in the future for some of those work that we're going to be doing? If we continue working on these features and realize today that we have already gotten the value benefits of our we can start working on those scope. We just discussed the code of those epic variable. So if you decide that the value has been enriched, or you have gotten the value of this specific epic, you can start using that. You can start working um, on that epic. So continue until it's just turning out. So otherwise, it's like we have the value that we wanted to from this epic, or those features, and then we can start funding. No, if you say no, the epic hypothesis was approved, so you have to look into, you can create new features and you can go through the same Kanban process to approve that specific features. So you go through the same epic hypothesis creation, you come up with the lean business case, and then you can just go through the same MVP, but this time around you have to go through different strategies. And then if this epic was very, very critical, but the analysis was not done correctly, you can be able to maybe to add some of those points that they were overlooked during analysis, and then you can present this lean business case to lean portfolio management, and you can get approved so they can get the value from that.